All right, I want to let you guys in on a small secret. I like to be educated, and in my spare time, I like to go to university websites to see what knowledge I can soak in. And tonight, I chose to partially attend the University of PragerU, and thankfully, they had a new video just for me. Perfect video. It is called Tim Ballard Fighting Sex Trafficking, America's Children Are at Risk. Oh, wow, that sounds terrible because now sex trafficking is a real thing. It is a real issue that happens in America and it needs to be dealt with. And it is something serious. So I'm sure PragerU is going to take a reasonable angle at this and they won't shove any of their culture war garbage in it. Yeah. I know you. Let's go ahead and get into this video. I already pre-watched it because I don't want to waste your guys' time. Let's go ahead and get into it. And I'll comment as we go along here.
I'm a husband first, and then a father to 9 children, 2 that are adopted. And I run one of the largest anti-trafficking organizations in the world called Operation Underground Railroad. So I was born in Glendale, California, raised in La Cañada.
So there's 2 main parts I want to show you guys. That is the first part because it is very important, especially when you're talking to a group that really appeals to authority, to establish that authority. And PragerU is doing a good job of that right now. And we're going to get to PragerU's true intention here because we are going to go over to about the 8-minute and 28-second marker.
Here.
So I gave you the pretense, right? He's talking about how he is this guy who's done a bunch of work in sex trafficking. So this guy right here knows the beginnings of sex trafficking and how to prevent it, okay? So let's hear how to prevent it.
There was a case 30 miles from my home not long ago. It doesn't even register that our kids could be playing with a pedophile. We think they're playing the computer because we're not paying attention. Turns out this guy's 42-year-old guy from Salt Lake City. He was playing, and he, on the message board, had convinced these 6-year-old girls to take their clothes off and take naked pictures of themselves and send to him.
Yeah, and this is also a real issue as well. There's a lot of different creeps out there on the internet, and it's very important to make sure that your kids are safe because you never know which weirdos lie around because one day, especially when you have kids, your daughter might be 14 and they might end up talking to somebody like Matt Gaetz.
Luckily, he was caught before he actually engaged with them. You need to understand there's no profile for this. It's not the dirty, gross guy that you think. It's anyone. And so there's no question that the people that are partaking of this are in the highest levels of corporations, government. And so I do think there is a pressure from.
Okay, and to some degree, this is true with the entire Jeffrey Epstein crap, the Black Book. We know that there's a lot of powerful people who are involved in some of these actions. Now, you also have the conspiracy side of it, and this is what I imagine PragerU is appealing to that QAnon crowd, which is entirely different, and that is like the tinfoil hat crap.
But the lesson I learned, which we need to pass on to others, is
what's the lesson?
We have to engage.
Okay, now how do you think this guy is going to engage? Okay, here is the big reveal. So you heard the guy's credentials. You heard him talk about a story in which one of these sexual acts took place where children were taken advantage of. Now, this guy has a solution. He's going to solve it all for us. He knows the steps to take. He is an established authority. Let's hear it.
So parents need to wake up. They're teaching these first graders this material. They're teaching prepubescent children sex education. If an adult is talking about sex and showing diagrams and pictures.
Yeah, and there we have it. It is sex education that is leading kids to be taken advantage of. Remember that.
It's illegal to do it. But all of a sudden, if a teacher does it, now we're going to call it legal and healthy.
So there's just so much crap to talk about here because this is something that conservatives have been going on and on about for a long time. I mean, back in the 1980s, which incidentally is the same time where they were going on about gay people, because during that time you had the AIDS crisis, which Ronald Reagan completely ignored. They made fun of gay people because at that time they considered it a gay disease, and since it was a gay disease, Ronald Reagan didn't really care about it, and they basically withheld doing anything for the entire period in the 80s. They didn't do anything because it was like, oh, it only affects those degenerates. We don't really care about those people. And during this time, you also had, I believe, Ronald Reagan's um, one of his head health officials who was trying to give out pamphlets for sex education, and it was making the Republican base really angry because even back then they didn't want sex education uh, because of their either Christian fundamentalism, or they were brainwashed and juked Ricky Bobby style about how if your son or daughter learns about sex education and their body parts, they're going to turn into some kind of like pervert like Ron Jeremy.
Having them question their gender by showing them pornographic images.
That's not happening either. So I got to keep stopping this video because it's just so many layers of stupidity and just being wrong. Uh, Teachers showing students pornography is not happening. It is not a large scale issue in America. You can Google for yourself, teacher in trouble showing students pornography. You're not going to see like this huge list of like every day where it's happening, documented happening every single day. Now, these people will probably tell you showing a video of your body parts to a group of like 13-year-olds in a sex education class is somehow pornography, and it is just inaccurate. It is just completely ignorant to reality that these people are trying to portray, because they want to go back to this either having no sex education at all, or they'll say, okay, we can do it, but only uh, abstinence only sex education, because we don't want to teach our kids to be absolute degenerates, which I'll talk about later because it doesn't work.
The inconsistency of what's going on here, and you're teaching our kids it's okay to do this. It's okay to be sexualized. It's okay to, and basically they're making themselves completely vulnerable. We're desensitizing people, the boys, to become pedophiles or sex addicts or dysfunctional husbands. And we're teaching the girls to promote it by being sexual. The kids are the ones who we're going to destroy. If we keep down this path, I'm telling you, we're going to have more victims and more predators.
Which is fundamentally not true. So, as I said before, when you teach kids about these issues, turns out that they know when people are mistreating them. Now, don't take my word for it. I actually brought a study here, which I don't know if Republicans are going to accept or not. Let's go ahead and bring it up here. This is from The Atlantic. A 2020 study examined 3 decades of research on sex education found that comprehensive sex ed that begins in elementary school can help prevent child sex abuse, among other benefits. Stranger danger type language isn't recommended these days. About 93% of child sexual abuse victims know their abusers. Instead, these programs help children identify the difference between appropriate and inappropriate touching, the difference between tattling and unsafe secrets, and how to identify abusive situations. In other words, sex ed isn't grooming. It helps protect kids from grooming. Experts recommend starting sex education as early as kindergarten and teaching it the way you would teach math. 5 year olds don't learn geometry, but they learn about numbers and shapes. Experts say kindergartners don't need to learn about orgasms, but they are encouraged to understand what their body parts are and how to protect themselves from unwanted touching. So this is obvious, but to conservatives, it's not, because they have this weird agenda that they have been trying to cram for years and years and years. This brings back to the abstinence only sex education, because eventually conservatives lost. They absolutely got blown away on the battle of not having any form of sex education. So they said, okay, we can do it, but we'll teach abstinence only because we don't want our kids to be degenerates, okay? So back in 2011, you had this guy named Rick Perry, Governor Rick Perry of Texas. No, I'm a Texas guy. You know what I'm talking about, brother. And he was interviewed by the Texas Tribune, and I'll let it speak for itself because it gets right into it. Here we go. Oh, here we go.
Why does Texas continue with abstinence education programs when they don't seem to be working? In fact, I think we have the third highest teen pregnancy rate in the country among all the states.
Abstinence works.
But we are the third highest teen pregnancy. We have the third highest teen pregnancy rate among all states in the country. The questioner's point is, it doesn't seem to be working. Abstinence
Well, look,
education.
It works. Maybe it's the way it's being taught or the way that it's being applied out there. But the fact of the matter is, it is the best form of to teach our children.
Can you give me a
And
statistic
I'm
suggesting
sorry.
it works?
I'm just going to tell you from I'm going to tell you from my own personal life. Abstinence works.
My name is Governor Rick Perry. Let me tell you something right now. I ain't got no studies, none, but let me tell you, abstinence works. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, so absolutely nothing. He doesn't have anything. Conservatives generally don't have anything. Now, over in a broad sense, they don't want kids knowing about sex through sex education, which leads to teen pregnancies, and they don't want these teenagers to have an abortion, even if they do get raped by not having sex education, and they get lured in by some pervert who looks like Matt Gaetz or Matt Gaetz himself, and then once they get pregnant, they can't have an abortion. So either way, they're screwed. I mean, probably bad choice of words there, but they are, not in a good spot because Republican policy is absolutely garbage. So, yeah, this is PragerU. That's Rick Perry. This is PragerU, spewing out garbage once again. What can you really expect? Well, really not much. But hey, they got 2.96 million subscribers. So they have a lot of influence, and unfortunately, you're going to have some soccer mom in a suburb look at this, get scared, and decides that their 5-year-old needs to be hidden from the world and be shoved into some like underground bunker.